Tonight on GamePoints episode 366, we have to talk about Unity and their recent change to fees that have the entire indie game development world up in arms. That and a few more in just a bit. I do want to invite everyone here to know that this is an audience interactive podcast, so if you're watching live here at Twitch TV/GamePoints or later at any video hosting platform, feel free to join in the conversation. I want to know what you guys out there think about this particular topic. Let's go ahead and go on to the very first story here, and that is Unity. You know, that big software development group that makes game engines for indie games? Well, they seem to collectively piss off the entire indie game scene there today. I'm bringing up an article here from IGN. The link to this and every other story we'll be talking about is going to be in the description below. I recommend you all go take a look at it. This is going to be a long one, so bear with me. Why Unity's new install fees are spurring massive backlash among game developers. This is going to be interesting because I'm also working with a bit of a swollen gland issue right now, so kind of stumbling over my words. Just try to bear with me. To the article. Game developers aren't happy with a new policy from Unity that will cost developers a small entry fee every time someone downloads a game built on Unity's game engine. That's right, Unity is going to start charging developers a small, they call it small fee, every time someone downloads it, regardless if they've bought it again or not. So for example, if you own a copy of, I'm going to use Vampire Survivors, and you download it once, Unity is going to charge the makers of Vampire Survivors. Then you delete it and download it again. They get charged again, again and again and again, and so on. It's kind of fucked up, right? And you don't even know the half of it. So keep on going here. It's called the Unity Runtime Fee, and the new pricing model will apply to developers who reach a certain amount of installs and revenue. From Unity's announcement, we are introducing a Unity runtime fee that is based upon each time a qualifying game is downloaded by an end user. We choose to install this because each time a game is downloaded, the Unity runtime is also installed. Also, we believe that an initial install-based fee allows creators to keep the ongoing financial gains from player engagement, unlike a revenue share. The Unity runtime fee is scheduled to take effect on January 1st, 2024, so the beginning of next year, and has been universally panned by developers on social media since its response. Now, they did update this here not even an hour ago as of time I wrote these notes. It's going to say the following. Unity is walking back some of the aspects of the runtime fee amid escalating anger from developers. According to Axios, the fee will now only apply to the initial installation of the game if the developers are not on the hook for installations through Xbox Game Pass, with fees instead being passed on to platforms like Xbox. Let me pause right there and say that's still going to affect development, because that means Xbox, if Game Pass and let's just stay with Game Pass because I'm kind of drawing a blank right now. If Game Pass is being forced to eat fees from Unity, they're just going to pass those costs on to the developers in the form of getting less money for their bulk payout for joining Game Pass. This does not solve the problem. Moving back on to their update here. Demos will also not be affected unless they're part of a demo that includes the full game, which, by the way, most of them are. A lot of them are time-gated. A lot of them stop at the end of a certain chapter and still have the full game on there, so that way if you want to buy the game, you just have to click the unlock button and it downloads just a little bit of code to click it going. Games offered in charity bundles will be exempt from fees as well, says Unity executive Mark Whitten, who also claims that only 10% of developers will be impacted by the fees. Yeah, but for 10% of the most profitable ones, the ones that are actually making product, a lot of people use Unity and develop nothing in the end for it. Or you get cheap asset flips, going back to the old digital homicide days on Steam. This is a non-answer. And I still expect, well, we'll get into more of that later. But this seems to be the current update as of an hour ago. My notes aren't up to that date on it, but I just want to read that to reflect what's going on here. As you can see, though, a lot of developers are pissed. Aggro Crab right here, just talking about how they're going to be on the hook for more in fees than they actually make from the game. You have other people talking about, like, if it's a freemium game, you download the freemium game, meaning you don't pay for the game. You download it, so if a developer gets no money from the initial download, they're hoping that microtransactions feed that whale. But Unity still takes a cut. Unity still, it's not even a cut of what you're getting, they just charge you a fee for it. So every time that someone downloads a freemium game, the developer is getting hammered by fucking Unity. And then you have Forrest here talking about how developers will start pulling their games from Sony, Microsoft, Steam, because, as we'll see later, if you've had a game on Steam for, say, 3 or 4 years, and people bought it back then, they deleted it, and they went, you know what, I want to revisit that game, play through it again, and re-download it. Well, after January 1st, 2024, that developer gets charged a fee on a game they've already collected revenue on years ago and likely spent. So there's no point in having your game still on these platforms, because all it's going to do is charge you money, because you're not making money anymore. The games have a very short shelf life. Most of the revenue is made in those first few weeks. So why would you bother having it still on Steam? Which brings up another good question. Steam games can be taken off the marketplace, but if someone has bought them, they can still download them. So even if their game isn't on the marketplace, are they still getting hit with those downloads? These are questions that Unity just refuses to answer right now, and they've been dancing around the topic using corporate gobbledygook. Moving on from where we were. Unity's blog post details what games will qualify for the Unity runtime fee based on 2 key criteria. The game has passed a minimum revenue threshold the last 12 months, and the game has passed a minimum lifetime install count. So in other words, it has to make a certain amount of money, and it has to have a certain number of installs throughout the life of its game. Essentially the successful stuff. Because no one's going out, and to use Digital Homicide as the whipping boy here, no one's going out and downloading whatever shit they produce and over and over and over again and making any money on it. There's no blood from that stone to squeeze. Unity further lays out the minimum revenue and install count to qualify, with different thresholds with developers using Unity Personal, Unity Plus, Unity Pro, and Unity Enterprise. Essentially the different tiers of the Unity software package you're paying for. Keep in mind, a lot of the developers are paying for Unity. I believe there is a free version out there, but they're already paying for this service to use the engine to begin with. And now they decide to put this shit on top of it. For smaller indie developers who use Unity Personal and Unity Plus, they will have to pay Unity 20 cents per install once their game passes $200,000 in revenue over the last 12 months and 200,000 life-to-date installs. This new policy has caused a lot of backlash among developers who are raising concerns about free-to-play games, charity bundles, and more. Unity did clarify, by the way, charity bundles are supposed to be exempt. However, there are many developers who are claiming that there is no method to track games which came from charity bundles, and they just have an idea of what platform through purchases they came from. One developer even went as far as to say he spoke with someone at Unity who had no idea there was even a tag for charity bundles. So a lot of this is knee-jerk responses to the outrage, and messages getting mixed, which is never a good sign from a company. Unity needs to get its shit together, because I don't think they expected it to cause this much of an outrage. Going on. The article is now going over what I was mentioning earlier. One big concern surrounding freemium games is it costs nothing to download and rely on in-game purchases as revenue. For instance, if it's a free-to-play game, it's made $200,000 the last 12 months, but has millions of people installing it, the developer could end up owing Unity more than the profit earned from in-game purchases. Because remember, freemium games run on the idea of a whale. So that's one of those cases where you have 1,000 people download your game, but only 2 of them are actually spending anything in it in any substantial amounts. So that, normally the idea behind it is, yeah, you have 998 people playing your game for free, and 2 people keep it running. Well, now those 998 people aren't just keeping your game, playing your game for free, they're actively costing you money. So that's going to kill the freemium game idea, which, hey, I have no interest in those myself, but still, kind of fucked up. In a statement to IGN, let me go down here a little bit more, essentially like this poor son of a bitch saying, if you buy a Unity game, don't install it. There are other people saying that if you buy my Unity game, you'll bankrupt me. It is fucked up what Unity is doing here. In a statement to IGN, Unity spokesperson said they're already working on preventing malicious install harassment campaigns. The statement said the following. We do already have a fraud detection practices in our ads technology. By the way, there is also ads being run on some of this shit. which is, so Unity is already getting money from that way too, which is solving a similar problem. So we'll leverage the know-how we'll leverage that know-how as a starting point. We recognize that users will have concerns about this and will make them available for process for them to submit their concerns to our fraud compliance team. Unity also clarified the fee will not apply to charity games and charity bundles. We've already talked about that. The program was designed specifically in this way to ensure developers could find success before the install fee takes place. Developers who will be impacted are generally those who have successful games and are generating revenue above thresholds. This means developers who are still building the business and growing the audience of games will not pay a fee. Unity also tracks its own proprietary data, by the way. Oh, by the way, real quick, here's Epic taking with Unreal taking a shot at Unity, going on about it. Unity also tracks installs of its own proprietary data. Speaking to Axios, Unity also confirms that if a player deletes a game or reinstalls it, it counts as 2 installs and 2 separate fees. That's right. Let's say, oh, what game do people hate out there that just came out recently? Goodbye Volcano High. Goodbye Volcano High has a regular group of people who actively hate that game. So one way to punish the developer for whatever slights they might see is to continuously uninstall and reinstall Goodbye Volcano High over and over and over and over again, costing them $1 for every 5 installs, maybe higher, wiping out any profit that you had. In fact, being sent a bill by Unity saying you owe us this much despite wiping out all their profit and then making them go into debt. Of course this is going to be misused. Of course this is going to be abused by assholes online. There's no way it's not. And then when Unity says, well, we have anti-fraud measures in place, we have ways to make sure that won't happen. They were asked about that, specifically right here. They were asked what measures they're taking and how can we know if fraud is happening, and Unity responded with the following. We leverage our own proprietary data model, so you can appreciate that we won't go into a lot of detail, but we believe it gives an accurate determination of the number of times runtime is distributed for a given product. In other words, trust us, bro. We got you. We know exactly what's fraud and what isn't fraud. Are you fucking kidding me? Of course I'm not going to trust you. I'm already paying you for a service that you have a vested interest in people installing and reinstalling over and over again. You're asking me to trust you that you're going to be honest in shorting yourself revenue off of my back? Fuck off. No. This is horrendously ripe for misuse and abuse. There's no way it's not going to be. Now, as I said earlier, going back to the IGN article, you have people working on Epic Games' Unreal Engine essentially capitalizing on Unity's bad day by talking about their royalty model and being very open and upfront with it. Not that I'm going to bat for Epic Games and Unreal, but if you're a developer who's thinking about starting up Unity, you might want to actually switch to that. If you're only a few months in development with Unity, you might also want to switch over to Unreal as well. If you have been working on your game for years now and you're already locked into Unity, I am sorry, because they did this once. That doesn't mean they can't do it again, and they're just making these changes arbitrarily. From what I understand, there is already talk of massive class actions going to where groups of developers getting together going, we did not sign up for this. This was not part of the contract that you gave us when we initially signed on to the development kit, the subscription fee, whatever terms they can use for it. There's also things about how they're ending certain tiers and just rolling people over to the more expensive one with only a few months notice because it kicks in January 1st. Not enough time to put the rails on a project and reevaluate whether or not you want to go on with it or not. There's a lot of shady shit behind this. And the reason why this matters is because let's talk about Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors, massive hit on Steam. But part of the reason why it was such a massive hit was its price point. It was like $2 or $3 on Steam. Now, for simplicity purposes, I'm going to make that $1. Let's say it released on $1, because I'm going to do some math here. Some very fuzzy math, but some math nonetheless. You have that $1 and you set on Steam. Steam immediately takes 30% off the top of that, so you now have 70 cents. Someone installs it, and Unity then takes 20 cents of that. So that 70 cents is now down to 50 cents. So you're only getting half of what you actually sold because two other companies have already taken their cut on that. And then you have to deal with like taxes and all that other associated shit, dev costs, whatever. And that's only one install. That's someone buys it, puts it on one machine, takes it off, puts it on another. They bought it on their work computer with the Steam account there, and then went, that's cool. I'm going to play this at home. They install it on a work computer and install it on their home computer. Well, that's another 20 cents. It doesn't scale with the cost of the sold. That's 20 cents right there. So now that 50 cents that you have goes down to 30. They do that 2 more times. Now the developers of Vampire Survivor owe fucking Unity 10 cents on the game that they sold. That one game they sold has now cost them 10 cents. And if you don't think that this is only and don't think for 1 second this is only going to apply to games starting from January 1st on, going to Unity's official FAQ right here, this is worth a read, by the way, just to see what they're planning on doing. I'm going to go down to the very last question here. Are these fees going to apply to games which have been out for years already? If you meet the threshold 2 years ago, you'll start owning for any installs monthly in January. No, in theory. It says they'll use the previous installs to determine threshold eligibility, and then you will start owning for them for new ones. In other words, if I released a game 4 or 5 years ago, and it meets all these thresholds already, I made money off of it, and the right number of people have installed it, does that mean I'm going to be subject to these fees starting 3 months from now, on a game that came out 4 years ago? Yes. The answer is yes. Assuming the game is eligible and distributing the Unity runtime, then the runtime fees will apply. We will look at the game's lifetime to installs to determine eligibility for those runtime fees. Then we will bill the runtime fee based on all new installs that occur after January 1st, 2024. Once again, let me make that clear. If I have a game that I bought 4 or 5 years ago, the developer already has my money from that game. In fact, they probably already spent that money on, who cares? It could be a new game. It could be something that they've worked hard to do. They could have bought a house. They could have bought that nice steak dinner out. That money is gone and spent 4 or 5 years ago. But I have their game, and I'm like, you know what? That was a great game. I'm going to reinstall and play that game. That means they get charged for it. That means going back and playing old games can actively hurt developers now with this shit. I can't even begin to describe the level of avarice one must have to do such a shitty thing. Which, of course, makes perfect sense why the CEO of Unity is John Riccitiello. That's right, the man who was running EA when it was voted the worst company in the world, beating out fucking Comcast for that title. This has caused such a shitstorm online when it comes to the indie dev scene that there is no way companies like Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo will not be able to respond. Because when it starts because that will affect their marketplaces as well. That will affect people going into Game Pass. That will affect people even going into things like Apple, where a bunch of Unity games run, the Apple walled garden, as we all know. This affects even the big boy publishers, and they have enough money to start throwing their dick around going, no, this isn't going to work. At least I would like to think so. I could be wrong. Unity is already saying Microsoft will be on the hook for those fees. I don't think that's going to go well with Microsoft at all. We'll see how that shakes out. I do see lawsuits coming already on the horizon. There is already talk, like I said earlier, that a couple of indie dev collectives or some of the bigger groups out there are starting to get their lawyers together. I wouldn't be surprised if Devolver Digital started to speak with some of their people behind the scenes about getting legal teams involved. This is going to lead to massive lawsuits, either a few big class actions and many, many smaller ones. And also, it's going to cause many developers just to go out of business. Flat out. This goes through, indie games go poof. A lot of them do. Now, that's not to say every indie game is quality, but over the past few years, I've enjoyed indie games more than I have some of the big budget titles out there. And this is the scope of how damaging this is cannot easily be defined in a small little 20 or 30 minute podcast like this. This needs to be stopped, and stopped right now. And my heart goes out to everyone that's going to be affected by this. It is going to be real ugly. I do expect Unity to do a big backpedal mea culpa on this, but considering that Unity itself has been having some problems lately, this feels a lot also out of desperation than anything else. That said, fuck them. You mismanage your company, you get the consequences that come with it. And also, not necessarily a big shill for Unreal, but if you're starting up a new game, you might want to consider going with Unreal over Unity in the future. Because even if they completely backtrack on all of this and say, we're sorry, they have already shown what they're willing to do and hope no one catches them, and just do it without any input or even permission from the devs, blatantly breaking their subscription contract on these things. Anyways, I've waxed poetic enough about this one particular topic. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments, regardless if you're watching at YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, you're at Twitch. And if you like what you see here, feel free to share, comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Got two more topics that I want to get into before we wrap things up today. Next up here via Reuters, Sweden's Embracer weighs options for Borderlands maker Gearbox Entertainment. Essentially, a few months back, Embracer bought Gearbox. Now they're looking to sell them. All of this still stemming from the fallout of the $2 billion now known Saudi Arabian deal that fell through between the Saudi Investment Group, the PIF, the Saudi Investment Group, what I think it's called Savi. Anyways, that Saudi Arabian Investment Group and Embracer, that $2 billion deal went kaboom. And Embracer has been shedding staff, closing studios, and essentially trying to hemorrhage a severed arm. And it seems that Gearbox is probably going to be one of the most profitable ways to do it, to the article itself. Embracer is considering options for US game developer Gearbox Entertainment, including a sale as Europe's largest gaming company looks to shore up its finances. 3 people with the matter told Reuters. The maker of the new Tomb Raider video game, search engine optimization, who shares a trade in Stockholm, is working with Goldman Sachs and Ethereum and Company to explore a sale, the people said. Embracer is weighing selling the unit, which is known for the first-person shooter Borderlands, after receiving interest from third parties, 2 of the people said. I have to wonder if that's Take-Two. Take-Two, the publisher of Borderlands, or at least was. I don't know about future Border games, but they were for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if they were eager to get that back in-house again. Officials from Embracer and Goldman Sachs declined to comment. Ethereum did not respond to requests for comment. Embracer, majorly owned by founder Wingfours, purchased Gearbox in February of 2021, a deal that valued the business up at $1.4 billion at the time. I can promise you they're not going to get $1.4 billion for Gearbox. I wonder if they'll get $1 billion for it. I do want to know if they sell it, what the final price is going to be. We need to remember that $1.4 billion and see if this actually turned around and made them a profit. But they have only had this company for 2.5 years. Embracer's in real bad trouble, real bad shape, if they're having to sell it off already. And this is arguably their crown jewel, because it's not like they have many other huge properties. Yeah, they have like Tomb Raider, and they have like Homeworld, Legacy of Kain. They have a lot of mid to low tier properties, but they don't have any really big blockbusters. Borderlands probably the biggest thing they got. They're trying to sell it. Gearbox marketing materials are already available for potential buyers, which consist mainly of international gaming groups, said 2 of the people. Oh no. So that means one of 2 people. That means either Tencent or that Saudi Arabian investment fund. Maybe the $2 billion investment went kaboom, but they might be willing to just buy Gearbox a la carte. My fear is it's Tencent. The sources request anonymity as the matter is confidential, cautioned a deal might not happen. So this is still very much under the shadow of doubt of whether or not this is going to happen or not. But goddamn, Embracer is in real bad trouble when they're talking about selling their crown jewel. And I know it sounds weird to say Gearbox is the crown jewel of a studio, but come on, it kind of is in this case. They really are doing the THQ all over again with their mid-tier offerings, which I love a lot of them, but they grew too big too fast. I have one final story for the day, and this is from Eurogamer. E3 2024 in doubt as organizer exits and location is abandoned. The owner of E3, the video game industry's most important annual showcase, has confirmed it currently has no organizer or location to hold the show in 2024. ReedPop, the owner of such events as PAX, EGX, and websites such as Eurogamer.net, the one that I'm reading this from, has now said it will not work on future iterations of E3 after previous partnering with the ESA to relaunch the show this year. To less than an icy reception, just no one cared. The ESA has also informed the Los Angeles Convention Center, E3's long-held home, that it would not turn up there in 2024, following an early report which stated the LA City Tourism Department did not expect the show to run there in the foreseeable future. Eurogamer sister site GameIndustry.biz reported today that it understands the ESA is now looking to 2025 for a complete reinvention of the show. See an online pivot. I do think E3 will be back. I think it'll be an hour-long show that happens every year with a bunch of mid-level games because all the big boys are going to be doing their own versions of directs. This is quickly going to fall into the same category of like the PC Gamer Future Games Show or Devolver Digital Direct, but less entertaining. That is going to be the level that you see at these E3 directs, which I'm predicting is what they're going to be pivoting toward. I highly doubt they will do any kind of live show floor kind of event. The idea of having a convention in the style of the old E3s, long past. We have grown beyond it for good and for worse. Moving on to the article. ReedPop pretty signed a $1 million multi-year deal to organize E3 beginning this year, but plans for the show ultimately fell through, with the show canceled by mutual decision. Once again, just no one cared. While the reach of E3 remains unmatched in our industry, that's a lie. They have many other ways that have bigger reach these days. We're continuing to explore how we can evolve it to best serve the video game industry and are evaluating every aspect of the event from format to location, said ESA President and CEO Stanley Pierre-Louis, the man who more or less killed E3. We're committed to our role as being a conveyor for the industry and look forward to sharing news about E3 in the coming months. The ESA is it's just dead at this point. There's no purpose for it to actually exist anymore. They're a lobbying firm that doesn't lobby. No one likes paying them any fees anymore. They are useless. And remember, E3 used to be very expensive for a company to join. Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo used to pay and spend millions and millions of dollars to have their games on the show floor until they realized they can do the same thing better for a significantly cheaper cost and keep it all in-house, meaning you can keep the message tighter and more controlled. E3 is over with and done. The ESA needs to get with the times and either learn that we need to think of something else or just what more can be said about it, right? It is tragic that it's going away because I have very fond memories of E3 over the years. It sucks because it used to be one of my favorite weeks of the year. I'll get together, watch all this gaming news come in, go total gremlin mode. That's gone. And it's gone mainly not because of times changing as much as it was incompetence. The ESA dropped the ball so many times that Jeff Keighley had to pick it up and run with it. That the bigger publishers went, fuck it, we can do it ourselves with blackjack and hookers. And the ESA never really answered for that. That guy's still there. People are still part of it. And it's like John Riccatello again, someone who constantly is just hated, but yet somehow keeps falling upwards. More's the pity. Anyways, that does it for the news of today, which means that does it for the show as well. This has been GamePoints episode 366, and I thank you all for showing up. We do stream this show live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here at twitch.tv/GamePoints. Can't catch us live, however, you can also show up to any myriad of video hosting platforms, be they YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, etc. Regardless of where you watch this show, feel free to let me know what you think down below. Just try to keep the conversation civil and germane to the topics on hand. If you did like what you see here and you want to support it, you know what to do. Like, spits, follow, subs, shares, all that good stuff. There's a Discord you can join, link provided down there, along with all the stories that we talked about. And you can follow myself on X at CapitalistPig21. I also stream throughout the week here at twitch.tv/GamePoints. So come on by, take a look what I'm playing, and say hey. That does it here for tonight, and until next time, I'm out of here.